Hey guys, tonight we begin with a man who is technically a living god but still cannot scratch his nose without three priests interpreting it as a message from the heavens. So before we step back into the past, take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you really appreciate what we do here. Tell us in the comments where you are tuning in from and what time it is. It is fascinating to see how our love for humanity and the collective past transcends all borders and geographical limitations. Now, take a seat, get comfortable, as we ease into your day's journey ahead. You wake up to the gentle sound of priests chanting your name, which is actually the 17th time since midnight. Because apparently being the living embodiment of Horus means the sun needs a formal invitation to rise, and you are the only one qualified to send it. Your bed, generously referred to as a sacred sleeping vessel, is the size of a small temple and about as intimate. Coincidentally, it is surrounded by people who have been watching you sleep for religious purposes. The mattress beneath you is stuffed with the finest linen, goose feathers, and the compressed expectations of every Egyptian who has ever prayed in your direction. You shift. Something in your neck protests. You tell yourself it is just the ceremonial headrest, which was designed by someone who believed comfort was spiritually suspicious. It is not yet dawn. You know this because the priests are still chanting the pre-dawn hymns, which are different from the dawn hymns, which are different from the post-dawn hymns. There are 17 distinct hymn categories and you have memorized none of them. You do not need to. You just need to look divine while they happen around you. You sit up and immediately 6 servants materialize from the shadows like anxious ghosts with excellent training. They have been there all night. They are always there. Privacy is for people who are not responsible for the Nile flooding on schedule. Life, prosperity, health, murmurs the nearest servant, which is the standard greeting. It sounds like a blessing. It functions as a reminder of everything that will go wrong if you make a mistake today. The chief body servant approaches with a golden basin. The water inside has been blessed, tested, blessed again, and tested once more by someone whose entire job is making sure the Pharaoh's face washing water will not cause a theological crisis. It is warm. It smells of lotus and ceremony. You splash it on your face and feel exactly as tired as you did before, except now you are wet. The drying cloth is linen so fine it probably took 6 months to weave. It costs more than most families earn in a year. It does the same job as any other cloth. You have stopped noticing the irony. Noticing irony takes energy, and you are saving yours for the part where you have to pretend the sun rises because you said so. The hour approaches, living Horus, says the high priest from the doorway. He is already dressed in his leopard skin, already holding his ceremonial staff, already looking at you with the patient urgency of a man whose job is making sure you do not accidentally doom the harvest by yawning at the wrong moment. His name is Amenhotep. He has served 3 pharaohs. He smells of incense, sacred oils, and the particular exhaustion of someone who has been awake since the 4th hymn cycle. You like him, as much as you are allowed to like anyone. Which is to say, you find him slightly less irritating than the other priests. I am aware, you say. He bows. Of course, living Horus. You are aware of all things. This is flattery. This is also his job. The two are indistinguishable. The robing begins. First comes the washing, which is not the face splash you just did, but an entirely separate theological event involving a different basin, different servants, and a prayer cycle that lasts long enough for your legs to go numb. You stand on a stone platform while they pour blessed water over your skin, scrubbing you with cloths soaked in oils that smell of myrrh, frankincense, and the concentrated anxiety of everyone present. Your body is not your body. Your body is a vessel for divine essence, which means everyone gets an opinion about its maintenance. There is a servant whose only job is your left foot. There is another whose entire career revolves around your right elbow. Technically, this is an honor for them. Technically, it means you have not bent your own elbow in private since you were crowned. The kilt comes next. White linen, bleached by the sun and the labor of people you will never meet, pleated by specialists, hemmed by other specialists, and inspected by a third set of specialists whose job is to make sure the first 2 sets of specialists did not make mistakes. It wraps around your waist and falls to your knees, crisp and spotless and slightly too tight because someone has been estimating your measurements based on sacred geometry rather than your actual hips. You do not mention it. Mentioning discomfort implies you experience discomfort. Gods do not experience discomfort. They experience divine challenges, which are completely different. The color settles onto your shoulders. Gold, carnelian, turquoise, and lapis arranged in patterns that tell stories about creation, eternity, and the administrative structure of the heavens. It weighs about as much as a small child and distributes that weight directly onto the muscles you will need for sitting upright during the next 12 hours of being stared at. Your sandals are gold. Your bracelets are gold. Your earrings are gold. By the time they finish decorating you, you are wearing enough precious metal to destabilize a small economy, and you have not even gotten to the crowns yet. The double crown, living Horus. Amenhotep asks, you consider. The double crown represents unified Egypt. The white crown of Upper Egypt nested inside the red crown of Lower Egypt. It is symbolically important, politically essential, and gives you a headache within 20 minutes. The headache is also symbolic, probably. Everything is symbolic. You have stopped asking. The double crown, you confirm. It settles onto your head with the gentle finality of a decision you will regret by noon. The weight presses down on your skull. The metal warms against your skin. Somewhere inside the crown is a small padding of linen meant to cushion the experience. It does not work. It has never worked. You suspect it was added so that someone could say they tried. The false beard comes last. It is a ceremonial attachment, plaited and curved, strapped to your chin with golden ties that dig into the soft skin behind your ears. Everyone knows it is fake. Mentioning that it is fake is treason. Mentioning that it itches is probably also treason. You wear it anyway, because 3,000 years of tradition says pharaohs have beards, and nobody wants to be the pharaoh who started the precedent of having a face. Amenhotep studies you with the critical eye of a man who has dressed living gods before. He adjusts the collar slightly, tugs the kilt's pleats, steps back and nods with what passes for satisfaction in someone who has not smiled since the previous dynasty. You are radiant, living Horus, he says. I am ready, you correct, which is not the same thing but will have to do. The procession to the temple begins while the sky is still grey. You walk, which sounds simple until you remember that you cannot just walk. You have to process. The difference is speed, gravity, and the number of people watching. Walking is getting from one place to another. Processing is moving through space in a way that makes everyone present feel you have witnessed something eternal. Your stride is measured. Your arms are positioned. Your face is arranged into an expression of serene divine authority, which you have been practicing since childhood, and still feels like wearing a mask made of your own skin. Priests flank you, swinging censers that pour smoke into the morning air, filling your lungs with incense until your breath tastes holy. Servants walk behind with fans, ostrich feathers waving in synchronized patterns that accomplish nothing practical but look appropriately magnificent. Guards line the route, their spears glinting, their eyes fixed forward, their presence a reminder that even gods need protection from the people who worship them. The Temple of Amun rises ahead, its pylons catching the first light, its surfaces carved with images of gods and kings doing things that gods and kings do. Many of those carvings are of you. Many more will be added after you are dead. You try not to look at them directly. It is unsettling to see yourself in stone while you are still breathing in the soft parts. The smell shifts as you enter the temple precinct, from open-air incense to the deeper, mustier scent of stone that has been sacred for centuries. Torch smoke clings to the walls. Old offerings leave their traces in the corners. Dried flowers, stale bread, the ghost of beer poured for gods who probably do not drink it. The floor is cool under your golden sandals. The air is thick with purpose. You have done this every morning since you became Pharaoh. You will do it every morning until you stop being Pharaoh, which will happen either through death or through death. There are no other options. Retirement is not a concept that applies to living gods. You work until you become a dead god, and then you work in the afterlife, presumably with better delegation. The inner sanctuary waits ahead, dark and close, lit by a single lamp. Inside is the statue of a moon, gold and magnificent, about the size of a man but carrying the weight of everything Egyptians have ever believed about creation, power, and the fundamental order of the universe. Your job, every single morning, is to wake him up. Technically, you are the only person allowed to see him. Technically, you perform the ritual alone. Technically, the high priest and 4 assistants stand just outside the sanctuary murmuring prayers because the god might need administrative support. You break the seal on the sanctuary door. The clay cracks under your fingers. Fresh each day, broken each dawn. You step inside and the shadows swallow you. The god waits. You bow. You offer bread. You offer beer. You offer wine and incense and the first light of morning, which streams through a carefully positioned shaft in the ceiling and falls directly on a moon's face as if you planned it. You did plan it. Well, someone did, 1,000 years ago. You just show up and take credit, which is actually the core skill of divinity. The ritual words come automatically now. They flow from your mouth like water, syllables polished smooth by repetition, meanings you stopped thinking about years ago. You are praising creation. You are affirming order. You are promising that you will keep Egypt stable and the Nile will keep flooding and the crops will keep growing and nothing will fall apart, at least not today, at least not on your watch. The statue does not respond. It never does. This does not seem to bother anyone. You wash the god's face. You anoint the god's body. You change the god's clothes, which involves tiny garments made by specialists who probably deserve hazard pay. And then when the prayers are finished and the incense is burned down to ash you back out of the sanctuary slowly. Still facing the god because turning your back on a moon would be rude and also possibly catastrophic for the metaphysical stability of the kingdom. The doors close. The seal is replaced. Another morning has been successfully started. The sun is fully up now, pouring gold across the temple courtyard, warming your shoulders, heating the metal crown on your head until it feels less like regalia and more like punishment. Your stomach growls, soft enough that only you notice. Gods do not get hungry. You have been a god for 18 years and you have been hungry for every single one of them. Breakfast happens in a hall designed to make eating feel like a political event. The dining hall stretches long enough to echo your breathing back at you with a slight delay, as if even the room needs time to process what it is witnessing. Columns line both sides, painted with scenes of abundance. Grapes, fish, bread, geese. All the things you are about to eat, rendered in permanent celebration. The smell of roasted duck and fresh bread fills the air, mixed with the lingering incense from your robe and the particular anxiety of everyone waiting to see if you will enjoy your meal or accidentally curse the kitchen staff. You do not sit. You are placed. 2 servants position the chair. 2 more adjust the cushions. 1 unfolds a cloth across your lap with the careful attention of someone diffusing a weapon. You lower yourself onto the seat and feel the entire room exhale. Successfully sitting. Another crisis averted. The food arrives in waves, each dish presented by a kneeling servant, each servant backed by a steward who announces what you are about to eat as if you cannot see it yourself. Roasted duck with honey and figs, living Horus. Bread of the finest Emma wheat, living Horus. Pomegranate seeds arranged to represent the eternal cycle of rebirth, living Horus. That last one is just fruit. You eat it anyway. Everything is tasted before it reaches you. Not for poison, though that is a consideration, but for quality. A man whose entire job is having opinions about your breakfast takes a bite of each dish, chews thoughtfully, and nods his approval before you are allowed to proceed. Technically, this is protection. Technically, it means your food is always slightly cold and someone else's saliva has been near it. You have stopped thinking about this. Thinking about this leads nowhere useful. You eat in silence because conversation during meals is considered undignified for the divine. The servants watch you chew. The stewards watch the servants. The guards watch the doors. Everyone is watching something, and somehow you are both the center of all attention and profoundly alone. The duck is good. The bread is fresh. The pomegranate seeds taste exactly like pomegranate seeds, regardless of what they are supposed to represent. You eat until you are no longer hungry, which is tricky because admitting you are hungry would require admitting you are subject to physical needs, and gods famously are not. You simply stop eating when the divine vessel has received sufficient sustenance. Your stomach calls this lunch. Everyone else calls it the sacred completion of the morning repast. Amenhotep appears at the edge of your vision, hovering with a scroll. This means the day's real work is about to begin. The audience schedule, living Horus, he says. You take the scroll. It unrolls to a length that suggests someone has confused daily schedule with comprehensive test of human endurance. Names, titles, petitions, disputes, offerings, requests, complaints, all organized by order of importance, which means nobility first, problem second, and solutions never. How many? You ask. 43 formal petitioners. 17 informal acknowledgements. 6 disputes requiring divine judgment. And the Nubian ambassador wishes to present gifts. 43. You remember when that number seemed overwhelming. Now it just seems like a Tuesday. You have been Pharaoh long enough that your sense of scale has been permanently damaged. Begin, you say. The throne room has its own particular smell. Old stone, fresh flowers, and the collective perspiration of people who have been waiting since dawn for the privilege of prostrating themselves in your direction. Your throne sits on a raised platform, positioned so that light from the clerestory windows falls dramatically across your shoulders like a heavenly endorsement. The double crown catches the glow. Your collar glitters. Your false beard itches. The overall effect is magnificent, which is good, because you cannot actually feel your lower back anymore and you have been sitting for approximately 4 minutes. The first petitioner approaches on his knees. This is standard. Nobody walks upright in your presence unless they are also royalty or have special permission to have legs. The man shuffles forward, forehead nearly touching the floor, muttering praises and blessings that blur together into a general sound of desperation. He smells of sweat, cheap beer, and the particular terror of someone whose life is about to be decided by a stranger in a gold hat. Speak, you say. He speaks. His neighbor's goats ate his grain. His neighbor claims the grain was on the neighbor's land. The neighbor is lying. The neighbor is also the local magistrate's cousin. He has traveled for 6 days to bring this matter before the living Horus because no one else will listen. You listen. This is, genuinely, part of the job. Egypt runs on the idea that you are the source of all justice, which means every dispute too complicated for local authorities eventually lands in your lap. You have heard arguments about goats, boundaries, inheritance, water rights, broken contracts, unfaithful spouses, stolen donkeys, and one memorable case involving a disputed fig tree that required testimony from 7 witnesses and a priest. The grain was on your land? You ask. Yes. Living Horus. The boundary stone is clear. And the neighbor disputes this. He claims the stone was moved, living Horus. But everyone knows. You raise a hand. He stops immediately. Your hand raising has been practiced to indicate different things. Stop speaking. Continue speaking. I am thinking. I am about to make a pronouncement. This particular raise means I have heard enough and you should stop talking before you talk yourself into a worse position. The vizier will send a surveyor, you say. The boundary will be measured. Justice will be determined by evidence, not accusation. The man's face cycles through several emotions. Relief that he was heard, confusion that you did not immediately side with him, and finally acceptance that this is better than nothing. He presses his forehead to the floor again. Life, prosperity, health to the living Horus, he says. May you reign for millions of years. He backs out on his knees, still facing you, because turning around would be an insult. You watch him go and calculate. That took approximately 8 minutes. 42 petitioners remaining. You will be here until your spine fossilizes. The next petitioner is a noblewoman whose husband died and whose husband's brother is claiming the estate. She cries. She presents documents. She cries again. You order an investigation. She thanks you so profusely that Amenhotep eventually has to signal the guards to escort her out before she dehydrates from gratitude. The third petitioner wants permission to build a temple. The fourth wants tax relief for his district. The fifth wants you to settle a dispute about a donkey that apparently kicked someone important. By the 10th petitioner, your face has achieved a state of permanent serene detachment that could be mistaken for divine wisdom but is actually the expression of a man whose thoughts have left the building entirely. You nod. You speak. You make judgments. Some part of you is doing the job while the rest of you contemplates the fundamental absurdity of being a living god who spends his afternoons hearing about donkeys. The Nubian ambassador arrives with appropriate fanfare. Trumpets, drums, and a procession of servants carrying enough gifts to make the whole thing look less like diplomacy and more like an extremely well-organized burglary in reverse. He is tall, scarred, and wearing enough gold to suggest Nubia has been doing well for itself. He does not prostrate. Foreign ambassadors are exempt from floor worship, but he bows deeply enough that his forehead nearly touches his knees. The gesture is respectful. It is also a reminder that he could stand up at any time because he does not actually believe you are a god. Living Horus, he says, his accent curling around the vowels. King of Upper and Lower Egypt. Lord of the two lands. I bring greetings from my king and offerings of friendship. The offerings process forward. Ivory tusks, exotic feathers, gold dust in sealed jars, incense that smells of forests you will never see, and a live leopard on a chain that looks about as happy to be here as you feel. The leopard, at least, you can relate to. Nubia's friendship is valued, you say, which is diplomatic language for let us not have a war. It would be expensive for both of us. The ambassador smiles. He knows the game. My king proposes a renewed treaty of trade. Gold for grain. Ivory for linen. Cooperation for mutual prosperity. This is actually reasonable, which makes you suspicious. You have learned that reasonable proposals from foreign powers usually contain hidden clauses, delayed consequences, or implications that will not become problems until after everyone currently involved is dead. The vizier will discuss terms, you say. Egypt welcomes Nubia's partnership. More bowing. More compliments. More protestations of eternal friendship that will last exactly as long as both kingdoms find it convenient. The ambassador backs out with his entourage, leaving the leopard as a gift. You look at the leopard. The leopard looks at you. Somewhere in its yellow eyes is the recognition of a fellow creature who has been dressed up, paraded around, and displayed for purposes it does not fully understand. Take it to the menagerie, you tell a servant. The leopard is led away. You almost envy it. At least it gets to bite people who annoy it. The afternoon brings disputes. These are different from petitions. Petitions ask for things. Disputes ask you to decide who is wrong, which means someone is always going to leave unhappy and blame you for it. They do this silently, of course, because blaming the Pharaoh out loud is treason. But you can see it in their eyes. You have become very good at reading eyes. It is one of the few entertainments available when you cannot leave your throne. Two priests are arguing about temple revenues. Each claims the other's temple has been diverting funds inappropriately. Each has documents. Each has witnesses. Each smells of sanctimony and simmering rage, with undertones of incense that does nothing to mask the fundamental pettiness of the disagreement. You both serve the gods, you say. The gods do not serve accounting disputes. They fall silent. You have learned that invoking the god's opinion is useful because no one can argue with it. What are they going to do? Claim they know better than the divine interpretation. That is your job. The treasury will audit both temples, you continue. Irregularities will be addressed. This matter is closed. It is not closed. It will never be closed. These two will hate each other until they die and probably continue the argument in the afterlife. But for now, They bow and retreat, and you have successfully made the problem someone else's responsibility. A merchant and a builder arguing about a construction contract. The merchant paid for a warehouse. The builder built what he claims is a warehouse. The merchant claims it is a granary with ambitions. You order the city governor to inspect the building and make a determination based on what it actually does rather than what either party wishes it was. A nobleman and his sister arguing about their father's estate. The will is ambiguous. The lawyers have made it worse. The sister weeps. The brother seethes. You split the estate in a way that satisfies neither of them, which probably means it is fair. By late afternoon, you have made 31 decisions, disappointed at least 40 people, and developed a headache that starts at the base of your skull and radiates outward like a small internal revolt. The double crown feels like it has gained weight. Your false beard itches in places you cannot scratch without causing theological confusion. Your back has given up communicating through pain and moved into a silent protest of complete numbness. The final matter, living Horus, Amenhotep says. You look at him. He has the expression of a man delivering bad news wrapped in procedural language. The high priest of Ptah, he says, wishes to discuss temple construction priorities. Temple construction priorities is code for the Ptah priesthood wants more funding, and they have sent their most persuasive arguer to make you feel guilty about not giving it to them. You have been having this conversation in various forms for your entire reign. The Ptah priests want a new temple. The Amun priests want a bigger temple. The Ra priests want a taller temple. Everyone wants more temples, and somehow you are supposed to build all of them while also maintaining an army, feeding the population, and keeping the Nile happy. The high priest of Ptah is old, patient, and extremely good at making reasonable requests that happen to benefit his institution enormously. He smells of myrrh and political experience. Living Horus, he begins, Ptah, who created all things with his heart and tongue, surely deserves a temple worthy of his glory, you finish. Yes, we have discussed this. He blinks. Priests do not like being interrupted. They especially do not like having their arguments preemptively summarized by the god they are trying to persuade. The treasury will be reviewed, you say. Allocations will be made according to Egypt's needs. Ptah's glory is not forgotten. It is not a yes. It is not a no. It is a masterpiece of divine ambiguity that commits you to nothing while sounding like everything. The priest bows. He is not satisfied, but he also cannot complain. You have given him exactly enough to prevent offense while providing exactly nothing of substance. This, you have learned, is governance. You stand. Finally, mercifully, stand. And the entire room reacts like you have announced a new era. Servants rush forward. Guards snap to attention. Priests begin the closing prayers that signal the audience is ended. Your legs tingle with returning blood. Your spine makes a sound that should probably concern you. Your headache pulses in time with your heartbeat. But the day is not over. The sun is still up. And somewhere, someone is preparing another ritual that requires your presence. Because you are not just a king who sits in judgment. You are a god who maintains the cosmic order. And the cosmic order, unfortunately, has a very full calendar. The evening ritual is the morning ritual in reverse, which sounds simple until you remember that reversing a 2-hour ceremony still takes 2 hours. You return to the temple as the sun begins its descent, painting the pylons orange and gold and making everything look significantly more divine than it feels. The same procession. The same incense. The same measured steps that make walking feel like a performance art piece about patience. Your shadow stretches long across the stones, and you try not to think about how many more times you will make this walk before your shadow is all that is left of you. The sanctuary doors open. You enter alone. The god waits, exactly as you left him, because statues have the advantage of not needing lunch or bathroom breaks. You reverse the morning offerings. You remove the God's Day clothes and replace them with night clothes, which are slightly different in ways that only matter to people who have spent their lives memorizing textile theology. You extinguish the sacred lamp. You speak the closing prayers, which are the opening prayers rearranged to acknowledge that the sun is going down instead of coming up. Amun's golden face catches the last light from the ceiling shaft. For one moment, he almost looks alive. Then the light shifts, and he is just metal again, shaped by hands that turned to dust 1,000 years ago, worshipped by people who will turn to dust eventually too. You back out of the sanctuary. The doors close. The seal is applied. The day, officially, is complete. The sun, officially, has your permission to set. Unofficially, you are so tired that your tiredness has developed its own personality and started making demands. Dinner is a smaller affair than breakfast, which means only 20 people watching you eat instead of 40. The private dining chamber is decorated with scenes of hunting and feasting, pharaohs of the past doing energetic things with spears and chariots. You look at them while chewing roasted goose and wonder if any of them were also this exhausted, or if the artists just assumed divine kings spent their free time athletically murdering wildlife. Your great-great-grandfather is depicted on the eastern wall, standing triumphant over a lion he allegedly killed with his bare hands. Technically, this is a historical record. Technically, court records from his reign mention that the lion was drugged, elderly, and released from a cage approximately 10 feet from where he was standing. You have learned not to trust walls. They have agendas. The goose is good. The wine is better. You drink more than usual because tomorrow will be exactly like today, and the wine creates a pleasant blur between now and then. Nobody comments. Nobody ever comments. Pharaohs do not have drinking problems. They have ceremonial relationship with the grape harvest. A musician plays softly in the corner, a blind harper whose job is to provide atmosphere without making eye contact. The song is about eternity and the blessed afterlife, which is either comforting or deeply morbid depending on how you are feeling. Tonight, it is both. Your wife joins you for the last course. She enters with her own small procession of attendants, her own elaborate wig, her own jewelry weighing down her shoulders. She has been Pharaoh's great royal wife for 15 years, which means she has spent 15 years being almost as displayed as you are, but with even less power. Her smile is practiced. So is yours. You have learned to communicate in the spaces between performances. The Nubian ambassador, she says, settling onto the couch beside you. Generous gifts. The leopard tried to bite the handler. A sensible creature. This is as close as you get to domestic intimacy. Shared observations about the absurdity of your shared circumstances. She smells of lotus oil and kaifi incense, the official scent of royalty. Underneath that, if you are close enough, is the smell of a person who has also been wearing ceremonial robes in the heat all day and would rather be anywhere else. The Petar priest came again, you say. Let me guess. Temple funding. Temple funding. She takes a date from the bowl between you and eats it slowly. Tell him Isis also needs a temple. A bigger one. With better columns. You smile. It is not a joke, exactly. It is a shared understanding that everyone wants something, and the best you can do is distribute disappointment evenly. She leaves before you do, her procession reassembling around her like a protective formation. She pauses at the doorway. Try to sleep, she says. I will try to be unconscious, you reply. Sleep implies rest. The corner of her mouth twitches. Then the performance resumes, and she is the great royal wife again, gliding out with perfect posture and a face arranged for public viewing. You finish your wine. The musicians continue playing, because they have not been told to stop. You let them play while you sit in the flickering lamplight and feel the dais weight settling into your bones. The walk back to your chambers is mercifully short and entirely witnessed. Servants light your path. Guards precede and follow. Priests murmur evening blessings as you pass, adding rest well, living Horus to their standard repertoire of things you are supposed to be doing. You nod at each one, which is exhausting in its own small way. Even nodding has been practiced. Even nodding must look divine. Your chambers smell of fresh flowers, clean linen, and the particular incense blend that is supposed to promote peaceful sleep. Someone has already been here to prepare everything. The bed turned down, the lamps arranged, the ceremonial items set in their proper places for morning. The room functions like a machine designed to transition you from awake God to sleeping God with maximum efficiency and minimum personal agency. The disrobing begins. Servants remove the crown first. The weight lifts from your skull and you feel your neck decompress vertebra by vertebra, your head floating strangely without the metal pressing down. You resist the urge to roll your neck. Rolling your neck would look undignified. You settle for closing your eyes briefly and pretending it is a spiritual moment. The false beard goes next. The straps leave red marks behind your ears that you will see in the morning and forget about by noon. The collar lifts away, and suddenly your shoulders remember that they exist. The bracelets, the earrings, the rings, each removed by a specialist, each placed in a designated box, each treated with more reverence than you have felt all day. By the time they reach the kilt, you are standing in almost nothing, your body finally your own for approximately 8 hours. The sleeping garment they dress you in is soft linen, light and simple. It is the least symbolic thing you will wear all day. You are almost grateful for it. The body servants retreat. The lamp bearers retreat. Amenhotep appears one final time, because apparently you cannot even go to bed without administrative supervision. The morning schedule, living Horus, he says, holding out a small scroll. You do not take it. Summarize. Dawn ritual. Breakfast. Audience with the provincial governors. Inspection of the new granary construction. Afternoon offerings at the Karnak temple. Evening ritual. Dinner with the foreign ambassadors. It is almost identical to today. It is almost always identical to today. The names change. The problems rotate. The fundamental experience of being a living God who spends his life in meetings remains constant. Anything else? You ask. The astrologers report favorable stars for the next 3 days. Good. The stars and I agree on something. Amenhotep bows. He is too well trained to smile at the joke, but you see the flicker in his eyes that suggests he wanted to. He backs out, and finally, blessedly, you are alone. The bed receives you like an old agreement. You lie back against pillows stuffed with feathers and sacred significance, feeling the mattress accept your weight, feeling your muscles begin the slow process of unknotting themselves. The ceiling above is painted with stars. Not real ones, but the ones that matter. The constellations that guide souls to the afterlife, the patterns that priests use to time ceremonies, the cosmos reduced to decoration so you can contemplate eternity while trying to fall asleep. You stare at the painted sky and think about the real one beyond the stone. Out there, somewhere, actual stars are appearing. The Nile is flowing. Farmers are finishing their work. Fishermen are pulling in nets. Children are being called inside by mothers who do not have to worry about cosmic balance. A whole country is going about its business, most of it having nothing to do with you, all of it somehow your responsibility. The double crown sits on its stand across the room, gleaming faintly in the lamplight. Tomorrow you will wear it again. Tomorrow you will walk the same halls, speak the same prayers, make the same judgments. Tomorrow you will be the living Horus, the Lord of the two lands, the intermediary between humanity and the divine. Tonight, you are just a man with a headache and a complicated job. Your eyes drift closed. The painted stars blur into darkness. Somewhere beyond your chambers, the priests have begun the night chanting. Low, rhythmic, endless. They will chant until dawn, when they will switch to the morning chants, when you will wake up and do everything again. The sound seeps through the stone walls like water finding cracks. You have stopped hearing it as noise. Now it is just the sound of the machine running, the mechanism of divinity grinding forward whether you are awake for it or not. The incense smoke curls toward the ceiling. The lamp flames flicker in some draft you cannot feel. The silence between the chants is almost peaceful. Almost. You think about the goat farmer who traveled 6 days to complain about grain. You think about the weeping noblewoman. You think about the leopard, led away to the menagerie, probably pacing its enclosure and wondering how everything went so wrong. You think about the high priest of Petar, who will be back next month with the same request wrapped in different words. You think about your wife, sleeping somewhere nearby, probably also staring at a painted ceiling and contemplating the particular exhaustion of being a symbol. Tomorrow it starts again. The chants, the crowns, the endless performance of cosmic significance. The walking that is really processing. The eating that is really demonstration. The judging that is really guessing while wearing gold. But that is tomorrow. Tonight, for a few hours, you are allowed to be unconscious. You take it. And just like that, our day comes to an end. You lived it. Not the glory, not the conquests, just the ordinary weight of being someone in a world that no longer exists. This is what history felt like when it was still just life. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Tell us your opinions in the comments below. And we'll see you in the next life. Yes, that pun was intended.